Welcome to Always Authors, the literary podcast that presents two authors in candid conversation. On this episode, we are proud to present Erika L. Sanchez and Diane Seuss. Erika is a New York Times bestselling author of the young adult novel I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, which was also a National Book Awards finalist. Though the book has been banned around the country for so-called controversial themes, Time recognized it as one of the best YA novels of all time. Erika's critically acclaimed memoir and essays, Crying in the Bathroom, won the Chicago Review of Books Nonfiction Award and has been optioned for television. Diane is a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet and former therapist who has authored 6 books of poetry, a multi-award winner for many of her works. Modern poetry was a finalist for the National Book Award. In 2024, she was elected as Chancellor of the Academy of American Poets. Listen in as they discuss the stresses of recent times, past versus present trauma, and the uniqueness of poetry. Inspiration starts now.
Hey, Erika.
Hi, Diane. We're living in literal hell.
We are.
How are you enduring? How are you, surviving all those adjectives? Because I'm having a hell of a time.
I am too. I've probably been, to be honest, which we are, in the hardest place in my life because it's not just me. If it's just us, then we have ways of managing ourselves, but it's everywhere and everyone. So much pain.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time alone. I'm in a lot of solitude for a range of reasons. And that can be both helpful and harmful, It's hard to generate writing in this time for me. Sometimes, my last book, Modern Poetry, literally asked the question, can poetry still mean? Can poetry still matter? By the end of the book, I did decide it could, but, a lot has happened since that last poem. Tell me how you are and how you are navigating and what's keeping you reasonably sane.
Well, I ups and downs, right? When ICE was here in Chicago, and it was a very heavy presence. It was like the precursor to Minneapolis, and people were getting snatched up everywhere. I was afraid to walk my kid to school. Had whistles. Everyone has a whistle, just in case now. And then one incident got very close to us in which ICE agents went into my daughter's old preschool. Who she was there for years, and she had just transitioned into just public school, and so these men raced inside. They followed a teacher, and then she went inside, and then they raced inside and pulled her out, and she was screaming, of course, and kicking, and it was just like one of the most horrific things I had ever seen. I didn't see it like in person, but the video circulated a lot, and we're very I feel ingrained in this community, and so it was just so hard, and to know that our children are not safe anywhere, that was horrifying, and to see this woman be dehumanized in that way, a woman who cares literally for our children, who's here. It doesn't matter whether you're here legally or not in my eyes, but she was she had a pending asylum case, I believe, and she was disappeared for almost a week or over a week. I don't quite remember. And so I feel like I'm just still in that mode, even though they're no longer here in that way. I'm referring to ice. I feel like my body hasn't caught up to my brain exactly. I've been trying to heal a lot of wounds, and it's hard when you're like in the thick of something very traumatic. And yeah, it's just been a motherfucker over
And
here.
it's present tense. It's not past trauma. We've probably both found strategies for dealing with past trauma, but present trauma, it's very difficult to navigate that while also caring for the people you have to care for
Yeah,
and doing the work you are here to do.
yeah,
Are you
yeah.
managing that? Are you managing to work? Whatever that means.
I feel like if I don't work, I will fall apart. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes I feel like, well, this is all pointless. Like I just get very nihilistic about it, right? Like what's this fucking poem gonna do for anyone? Um but
I
then
agree.
you know it's like I want to be out in the streets, like, fucking people up. But our poetry, I have to remember, like, what got me through my life was poetry. Not just the poetry that I wrote, but the poetry that I read. If I hadn't read those poems, those poets, then I wouldn't be the person I am, and I wouldn't even be alive. And it sounds all romantic and precious, but it's like the literal truth of my life.
Yes.
And I feel like that, right? Like
Mm,
you feel the same way about poetry from what I can gather. Which is why I love your work so much, is that you're like all in it. You're like, this is your work, that you were born to do, and I can read that, and I can feel it. And so
thank you.
yeah, no, it's your work is incredible. And I I feel like I have to like shake myself out of this sort of like despair, because first I have a child. To me, that's the most important thing. Like I can't just crumple, because she needs me. And then also, like, poetry is magical. Poetry is what people um run to in difficult times. Poetry has inspired revolutions, and poetry has such a it's ancient too. Like, it's always been around since people could speak. And so to me, it's like just just clawing my way back up
Yeah.
from those moments.
Poetry, I feel like poetry is unique in that it's made of a different kind of language. And it's a language that can be responsive to these sorts of moments, not in a way, not in explaining these moments, but in vibrating maybe with
Mm.
them, resonating with them. And it's funny we started here because I have been reading a manuscript that I have been asked to write a blurb
Mm.
for.
Yes.
Blurbs, they're sort of seen as silly, but in a sense, I do see it as a way of responding to what people are trying to do to contend with what's going on.
Hmm.
And this, I think, is a first book by a younger poet. And the thing I noticed the most, this is a person whose family was displaced from like three different countries, ended
Oh my
up in the
God.
US. Yeah, and feels absolutely unrooted, unmoored, homeless, unlanguaged.
Hmm.
And those feelings, those realities, come through in the very syntax of the poems
Mm.
in a way that I don't know. a writer can do in any other genre. The way the sentences are lined up. You see the
Hmm.
haltingness. You see the trying to build something from what they call shards.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I ever since I was a very small child, my father died when I was 7. He was sick, you know, when I from the moment I knew him. And he was 36, my mom was 34.
Oh my God.
And language just from the beginning seemed like the the way to respond to that.
Hmm.
It actually, in the magical thinking of a child, it kept me in touch with him. It was like a way to
Hmm.
maintain a relationship. So it always felt, as you just said, magic in that regard. And, and that leads me to something I wanted to ask you. You've worked in all the genres pretty much. Does one have your heart? Does one, feel more up for you right now?
I would say that poetry is my center, my core base. It's what allows me to write other genres. And
Mm-hmm.
so poetry is like my home. I can't ever leave it. I've been working on a poetry manuscript, which I think I'm on year. It may be a decade of work at this point,
Mm,
but um, but for me, poetry requires that sort of time and silence and attention, and I'm very particular. I'm very obsessive with poetry, and it's like very much a spiritual experience for me.
mm-hmm.
It feels like just an extension of who I am, and so and when I read something that stuns me, it's like nothing else. Like poetry is what really, I don't know, it manages to wake me up in a way that nothing else does. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's it's magical, as I said, and I feel like I I venture out into the other genres when it feels really necessary. When I never write anything just to write it, because I don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't crank out books, because that's not how I operate, and I feel like a lot of it comes from my ancestors, and like my past, and the people who came before me, and I feel like that's something that can't be forced. It's
Mm-hmm.
There's something very beautiful about that, in my opinion, um and so for me, poetry is like, it's allowed me to venture into different areas, and nonfiction for me was really freeing, in that I was telling the truth, the literal truth, mostly, as far as I could, in the parameters. And so that was really um, cathartic in a different way, where it's like, this is what happened to me, this is how I saw it, this is what I did. And then fiction is, uh, also just, I love them all. I love them all. Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm writing
It's
a
like
novel.
three lovers. You just can't pick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I should, like, I want all the
No.
pleasure. Um
Yes.
and so this
Good.
new,
Good for you.
yeah, as a brown woman, like, that's not something that I have ever been encouraged to do. Like, that's something that I had to
Mm-hmm.
learn. Like, this is who I'm going to be, and what I'm about, and what I want. And so in this latest book that I've been working on for 5 years now, it's about a woman like my mother, not my mother, but of that generation,
Mm-hmm.
undocumented woman, single and searching for someone and something, and it's um it's allowed me to go back in time. I feel like I'm just like jumping in time, and that feels really amazing to better understand like where my parents came from, and the types of situations my mom would have gone through, or just a woman like her. And I've also interviewed many women in the community to get a sense of what that experience is like. I grew up seeing these women, right? But I wanted to hear it from them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that to me is extremely exciting, because this is a woman, an identity that has not been paid attention to, and a woman who, an identity that is like pivotal to this country, to like critical for this country to work, like Mexican women, brown women are like raising people's children. They're like
Mm-hmm.
cleaning hotel rooms. They're
Cooking
feeding
their
us all,
food.
picking the food. It's
Yeah.
just like, but like we've never. I can't think of many examples of there ever being a character like that. And
Mm.
so to create that person, like, it's just been so exciting. And she's all fucked up, because of trauma, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
love her, and she's trying, and she
Mm-hmm.
sometimes she's, you know terrible, but she's a person, like that's how we are. And
I
so
like the terrible
me too.
characters, Yeah, because I'm terrible,
Aren't
you
we
know.
all?
Yeah, I mean, we should be if we're not. Um, but yeah, I one of my favorite novels is Madame Bovary because
Oh,
she's so
yes.
terrible.
Ah, I love
Is
that
that one
one.
of yours?
Oh my god, yes. The ending haunts me still.
Oh my God, I know. And just the tension between his sentences, which are just so incredibly beautiful, and the content, which is so disturbing. I love that book.
Oh, amazing.
Actually, I just read a quotation from Flaubert, you know, on social media, of course, that was something like, I am so obsessive, I'm obsessed, I'm compulsive about writing, and at the same time, I'm obsessed with the fact that I'm obsessed, you know? And you see that, I mean, he was a terrible person. You see that
Yeah.
in, I really don't love feeling like an artist of any kind has to be good. I certainly have had long periods of time in my life when I've not been good. And I'm interested in how a person grapples with that aspect of their own character. So, yeah, I'm glad you're creating a anti-hero maybe, or
Always.
yeah, yeah, because they're the ones we learn from and can love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
I
not
I
fun
wish
to
I
meet
could.
someone who's not fucked up.
Right, I know. What's there to talk about? Oh my God. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I ever thought I was good. I don't think so. I think I was a good child, whatever that means. I had a lot of empathy. I really cared about what my parents were going through, what my sister was
Mhm.
going through. But I remember making a decision, and it was conscious at age 10, because my empathy and goodness had made me also very vulnerable
Mm.
in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a decision at age 10 that I that it was not working, that it wasn't working. And I changed in just a moment. It was like click, and I changed.
Whoa.
I know.
Amazing.
Have you had one of those?
You know, I don't know if it was a moment, but as a kid, I was I was always considered like, bad, troubled, um, since the beginning, and it was a lot of it. I now understand as ADHD. Um,
Mm,
I was diagnosed very late, and
that'll
my
do it, girl.
whew, it's now everything makes sense. I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
okay. So those like intense mood swings and just extreme sensitivity, emotional sensitivity to basically everything. That was it was considered to be a problem. And I
Mm-hmm.
was always crying, and because I was so dysregulated, now I understand,
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like trying to heal from like a lifetime of all that, and it's been really intense. But I felt I always felt like othered by my family and
Mm-hmm.
classmates, whatever. And as I grew older, I just had like this sort of disdain for everything, and this sort of like fuck you attitude that I still have. But it was like, you know, just mad at everything. And
Mm-hmm.
um and it was just, you know, I just didn't want to be the way that people wanted me to be. And in fact, I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally could not do it. And so I kind of came to terms with that my family doesn't really like me. I'm rejected by a lot of different people because of the things that I say and think and feel, and so I just kind of I try to make peace with it throughout my life. Like I'll just never be understood, it's I guess that's how I'm gonna live. And then now where I feel very understood by a lot of people, and I have a very beautiful home, a very loving family. Like I created this space that is just like very nourishing to me, and yet my body hasn't caught up to that.
Mm-hmm.
That disconnect
Yeah.
of like no, we're not there anymore. but your
Mm-hmm.
body still believes it is, and so it's like uh, so it wasn't like a moment, but it was like probably many moments of understanding like you're not you're different. Something's
Mm-hmm.
fucked up about you, and that's how I grew up, thinking something was wrong with me. Now I understand it differently. Yeah.
Yes, thank God. Yeah, I was, I'm thinking about your comment about the body holding on to or remembering that feel. We're born in that feeling almost,
Mm.
of especially, women and other animals. Um, that there's something essentially off about us,
And disgusting too sometimes, like
Yes,
you
yeah.
know
I
like
was walking my dog. It's so bad here weather-wise, just tons of ice, and probably true in Chicago too.
it's actually
And
beautiful right now.
well, it is right now, but it's been a really
Yeah.
hard winter.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the sidewalks were impassable, and we were walking on the side of the road to get home. So, I didn't want to fall, and I'm walking her, holding to the tight to the side of the road, and some man drove by, rolled down his window, and said, "Get out of the road!"
Jesus.
Yeah, and just that feeling in that moment, I could feel the shame return,
Mm,
from, age fucking 5,
yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not supposed to be here.
Oh my
I'm in the
God.
wrong place. I'm taking up space,
Yes.
whatever. I'm 69 years old, you know?
Yeah.
I can frigging walk on the side of the road if that's what I need to do to stay whole. I know that, but my body went to the
Hmm.
shame. And maybe, that's why we keep writing in some ways. The body remembers. And so we have our themes we have to continue to work out.
That's
The
true.
the daughter in your young adult novel,
Yeah.
she's sort of like the you character, it seemed. And the one who dies is sort of the good, in quotes, the good one.
Hmm.
And, I'm so interested in the fact that the process of the story really is uncovering at least the complexity of what was called good in the other daughter that
Mm.
died. And I remember in that movie, Saturday Night Fever, where the brother is a priest and he decides to leave the priesthood, and the
Oh, yeah.
John Travolta character says to him, well, maybe if you ain't so good, I ain't so bad, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought of that with your novel,
Yeah.
like as she discovers more, it complicates goodness and badness and beauty,
Yes.
even.
Hmm. Yeah. I wanted it to be very messy in that way.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, what does it mean, for a girl to be accepted in a traditional family? Like, what kind of lies do you have to tell? And my daughter, she's so funny. She's 5, and last night she asked me, she's like, "Why were my grandparents weird when you were little?" Because I sometimes I tell her stories, and she's like, "That doesn't really make sense. Like, why did they say that? Why did they do that?" And so I
Hmm.
tried to explain to her, like, I now as a mother, there's just like so much, everything's shifted, and I have a lot more grace and empathy for my parents. And I explained to her, like, we grew up in totally different places. Like,
Hmm.
my mom grew up in a place where they didn't even have a bathroom. Like, they just went in
Yes.
the woods. She started doing housework as soon as she was literally able to, as a toddler. Um
Hmm.
she didn't know what money was until she was like 9. So, to grow up like that, and then to be placed in Chicago, and then
Yes.
and then to be raising a daughter in this completely new world, like, oh my God, it's such a leap. And so I wanted to explain to her that it wasn't that they were mean or anything like that. It was like they literally didn't know anything else. And
Yes.
so she seemed to understand, which is, she's creepy because she's like she sometimes she says things to me, and it like gives me the willies. For instance, she said to me, she was reading poetry, she was making it up, and she was like looking at these paint cards and just like making up a poem, and she says, "You are your mother's mother."
Ooh.
And yeah, I was like, and then she said, "And I am your mother," or something like that, like this very profound thing that these concepts that I've been really thinking about, like, what does it mean to mother, and what happens when you're mothering your mother.
Hmm.
And just the way she put it so beautifully, I was like kind of stunned. um
Hmm. And she's 5.
She's 5. It's so weird.
And then your hope is that she can hold on to
Yeah.
that deep wisdom. Remember
Yeah.
one time, my son was about that age, and a bee, we were outside, and a bee was flying around him, and my ex-husband was kind of using his hand to try to move it away in a graceful sort of way. And my son said, he had a funny way of saying ours, and he said, "Don't try to charm it," meaning charm.
Oh,
And then I, read something about bee charmers
what?
in the
That's a thing?
South. That's a thing. Yes. And I didn't even know he knew the word charm, you know.
Oh my God.
And yeah, he would do stuff like that that made me, as you're thinking, really think, boy, he's still got, what did Emerson call it? The oversoul, that
Mm,
part of us that is part of the big thing, the
mm-hmm.
collective soul. And you don't want them to forget it.
Yeah.
Hopefully they remember
Does your son remember?
saying that or
Or
what
just
he
like,
meant.
or did he keep that spirit?
I think so. And it made life hard for him in some
Oh.
ways in this culture. You've read, I know, some of my stuff about his
Hmm.
struggles with addiction and all.
Hmm.
Yeah, so, it to be complex to remember the oversoul in this culture. I thought about that with your poem. Is it called Translations or Translation?
Oh yeah, translation. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, where what is being translated isn't literal, but it's metaphor really. And I thought about, being bilingual, not just in language, but in experience,
Hmm.
how complex that makes every moment. How you're always sort of translating everything. And and a child who remembers is also translating constantly. So, many of us choose to forget,
Yeah.
but you just hope that, I think poetry is the language of remembering.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and poetry is like the perfect form, I think, for a lot of bilingual people, because you can wrestle with that. You can play with it. I use Spanish a lot, but I don't write in Spanish. And so
Hmm.
and people always ask me about that. It's like, I don't have the same capacity in Spanish that I do in English, but I think in
Hmm.
Spanish, I feel in Spanish. And so that's how it manifests. And it's it's really, I don't know, a way to honor these two parts, and to feel whole within them,
Hmm.
and so my daughter, she's bilingual, but she hesitates a lot to speak in Spanish because everyone in this house speaks Spanish. I sometimes speak
Mm.
Spanish to her, but her school is, it's all in Spanish. Her grandparents, she's always talking to them, but there's like this sort of hesitation, and I have felt like a great deal of anxiety about that, and
Mm.
guilt, because I'm like, I need to be passing this on. She needs to be speaking Spanish, and like all this like unreasonable pressure about it. And I came to the conclusion recently is like, I she's like the third generation here, and I can do everything I can to have that be a part of her life, but it's never gonna be like she grew up in Mexico. It's just not gonna be
No,
that way, and it's
no.
okay, you know.
Hmm. It's interesting. I don't know if you know or have read Gustavo Hernandez, poet. He has a new book
Oh,
called Bachelor.
I'm gonna I'm gonna
His
order it.
parents are immigrant immigrants from Mexico. Well, he was a little kid immigrant, but grew up in the States. And then I also think of Eduardo Corral,
Oh, I love
who
him.
who yeah, his first book, Slow Lightning, how he infiltrates it with Spanish. But I remember talking to him about it and him saying, I don't know Spanish like I know English,
Mm-hmm.
it's and so he sort of came to that weaving, the artistry really of that kind of weaving. And so yeah, I'm really interested in, I guess it is in certain ways a form of code switching. I've done it not in the same way at all, but as a
Mm-hmm.
rural person from a very working class, small town landscape, to then, being a teacher in a college or, being in the kind of academic weirdness of the poetry world.
It is very
And
weird.
it's very weird. And trying to figure out, how to articulate without abandoning who I am,
Mm-hmm.
because who we are comes through in language. But it isn't as simple as, oh, I speak Spanish, or, oh, I, you know, use the wrong grammar sometimes, or
Mm-hmm.
what people consider wrong. So it is it I go back to the book I just finished reading, the first book, that
Mm-hmm.
it requires being very conscious about the steps you take with language in a way that people who don't have to do that code switching probably will not experience, you
Yes.
know.
It's and it evolves. I'm sure it's changed for you over the years. Like I used to censor myself a lot. In
Me
terms
too.
of how I express myself, especially in speaking and speaking to large groups of people and trying to be
Mm-hmm.
proper and grammatically correct and all that.
Smart. Try to be smart.
Right. Just like all that bullshit
Whatever
that
the
we're
hell
fed.
that is.
Exactly. And so as I've grown older, I've grown um I just don't give a shit, you know? I just don't.
Hmm.
And if
Well,
I'm
my
not tapping
God,
mhm.
you've had so much success. Whatever that is, whatever the world calls success, you've had
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
You've proven yourself. F off. You can talk how you talk.
It it feels like, you know, yeah, like that where it's I've I tried to fit in at times, and I don't need to do that anymore because
Mm-mm.
I'm like my own person. People understand what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I drop f bombs all the time, and I used to be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and now I just don't care because like the world is on fucking fire, you know, and it's like
Yeah, we
you're gonna be
better
worried
be
about
saying fuck.
exactly. It's like who cares, and it just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter to me. And if people think that I'm uneducated or whatever, then I like I couldn't give a fuck. I just can't
Mm-hmm.
because I know who I am and I know what I've done, and I, you know, this propriety, this decorum that we've been conditioned with. It's like that's white supremacy, and white
Mm-hmm.
supremacy, as we can see, has been a scourge on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't participate in that. I'm trying to scrape myself clean of white supremacy,
Mm-hmm.
because is it's like a really horrifying system, and we see this more and more. And I don't even want to get into the Epstein files because it's just
Oh
so
God.
vast. But that's been really eating me up. Just the fact that
Mm-hmm.
our world is run by these horrific, ghoulish motherfuckers, and
Monsters. And
monsters.
it's all twisted in with money.
Mm-hmm.
It's class supremacy, it's
Yep.
white supremacy, it's masculine supremacy, and it's all twisted up together into this monstrousness.
It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I've read slave narratives. I know some of the things that went on during those times. And so like it shouldn't shock me, but it does shock me. I thought we were like more evolved than that. I thought that like I knew things were fucked up, but I just didn't understand the extent. And I think obviously a lot of people didn't understand how global and far-reaching and
Mm-hmm.
inhumane and amoral, it all is. It's just like, yeah, I'm having a really hard
Eve,
time with that.
it's horrific. Evie Shockley wrote a poem after Obama's first election called, like, my last post modern poem number 3, I think is
Mm,
the title. And in which she really kind of dismantles the simplicity of the hopefulness that people felt with the
mm,
election of the black president. She called it a brown black man, and the now when I read it, I actually read it out loud to my son the other night again. I see just how brilliantly she could see the future. That that event, you know, opened a trap, sprang a
mm-hmm.
trap that is so complicated, and we're seeing the outcomes now of how horrified white people were that a black man was
Mm,
president. And she saw it. That's something poetry can do. Maybe
yes.
it's the oversoul again. It can see into the future. It cannot take things at face value. It cannot sentimentalize. That maybe I'm finding a way to wrap up our conversation here, because it's it's like you said about liking complex characters who aren't good. It can, bring that complexity to the way we see. And Evie Shockley saw in a complex way, in a way nobody wanted to see then. We wanted to believe
Yes.
it was the beautiful moment.
I really did want to believe that.
I
Oh my
did
God.
too, girl. Yeah,
Oh, man.
I know. And that's why our hearts are so broken.
But now we can
And
see so much of this bullshit. That's kind of what reassures me. It's like it's cracked open. Like, what are we going to do now?
yeah, it is. And there was this, I was a therapist for a long time,
Oh, I didn't
a
know.
talk therapist. Yeah. And it reminds me when you would reach a certain place in therapy, with somebody, and it seemed like, oh, it's all coming together. It's all kind of beginning to get whole, make sense. And I learned never trust that because there's layers in this culture, in our history, in an individual who grew up in that haven't even begun to be touched because it takes a certain level of strength to begin to touch them, you know,
Yeah,
with
that's true.
with our current, I almost said that ugly word, but it with the current leadership, we are just beginning. It's like this, sewage coming up from the deep
Oh yeah.
of what this place was really built on, and and all the suffering
It's never been dealt
that
with.
never been dealt with, and here we are dealing, seeing, some of us anyway,
Yeah.
you know.
Ugh.
Renee Good, I think of her being a poet, writing
Yeah.
poems. And, we must hold on to these moments where we see people seeing it.
Mm-hmm. That does reassure me, that the people are starting to crumble here and there. And
I
so,
think so, yeah. My mom is 96 and she just keeps saying, I want to live long enough to see it turn.
oh,
Hmm.
that's a beautiful notion. I really hope that comes to be, because I think, man, what a way to, like, you can't say goodbye during such terrible
No,
times. Like, come on, it's
no.
so unfair.
I don't know if you heard or saw, but my niece just died. She
Oh,
was
no.
49. She had a stroke in the middle of the night out
Oh
of the
my
blue.
God.
She was a teacher of special ed kids, and she was so good and so
Mm.
loving and complex too,
Mm.
as we're speaking of. But that she died in the midst of this is really heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
That she didn't get to see a turn. She probably wouldn't put it that way though, which is why she was her.
Mm.
She would probably put it some other way. But
Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that.
yeah, her name was Emily, and she was quite extraordinary in a kind of free-spirited way that just was all about love, and
It's beautiful.
connection. Yeah. Well, thank you for this.
Thank
I'm
you.
really cherish this time with you, and
Me too.
we haven't had it enough. And today we got to
Yes.
luxuriate a little
I'm
in
sure
that
we'll meet
time.
again soon.
We must. And my love to your prescient 5-year-old. May she
Thank
hold
you.
on to the memories. Yeah.
Yeah. Her name is Sojourner.
Oh, I love that name. Is that what you call her, or does she have a nickname?
She has a nickname, Soji. That's what she likes for now. But
What is
I
it?
feel like Soji.
I love it.
Yeah.
What a great name. There's some beauty there
Yeah.
right now in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I think you're
Love
the
to you and
best. So
yours.
thank you.
Thank you. Take
You
care.
too. Bye.
Bye, Erica.
Thank you for listening. Please visit alwaysauthors.com to learn about our other episodes. Always Authors is an exclusive production of Atomic Focus Entertainment.